Every spring, American garden handle billions of dollars for bagged fertilizer. And every morning, those same gardeners scrape some of the best plant food on earth straight into the trash. Coffee grounds, eggshells, banana peels, the ash from last night's fire pit. The companies selling you that $15 bag know exactly what those scraps can do. They just have no reason to tell you. But before you dump your whole kitchen onto your tomatoes, fair warning. A lot of the scrap fertilizer advice floating around the internet is wrong, and some of it will genuinely hurt your plants. These are 11 free fertilizers, sorted into what works, what's harmless, and what needs to stop. So how does the stuff in your trash can stand in for a product with a guaranteed analysis printed on the side? Every fertilizer bag carries 3 numbers, and they stand for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen grows leaves, phosphorus builds roots and fruit, potassium runs the plant's plumbing, moving water and sugars where they need to go. Kitchen scraps carry those same nutrients in smaller, slower doses, and there is a catch. Plants can eat a banana peel. Soil microbes have to break the material down first, and that takes weeks or months. The slow release is a feature, not a flaw, because it feeds plants steadily without ever burning roots. But it also means some scraps deliver far less than the internet promises, and one of them delivers nothing but trouble. Number 1. Used coffee grounds. Start with the myth, because it refuses to die. For decades, gardeners have been told that coffee grounds turn soil acidic and belong only around blueberries, azaleas, and hydrangeas. According to the University of Minnesota Extension, used grounds do not lower soil pH in any meaningful way. The acid in coffee is water-soluble, which means it ends up in your cup, not in the filter. What is left in the basket is close to neutral, and you can use it anywhere in the garden. And it is worth using. Spent grounds carry a modest charge of nitrogen, the nutrient that drives leafy growth, and soil microbes release it gradually as they digest the material. The Old Farmer's Almanac recommends as a mulch ingredient or a compost addition for exactly this reason. The right way to apply them is a thin layer no more than ½ inch, scratched lightly into the soil surface or stirred into the compost pile. Dumped in a thick pile, grounds compact into a crust that sheds water like a roof shingle, so spread them out. If you do not drink much coffee, many coffee shops bag their spent grounds and give them away free for the asking. The verdict on this one is easy. It works, it is gentle, and the supply never runs out. Number 2. Banana peels. You have probably seen the mason jar trick making the rounds online. Peels soaking in water on a kitchen counter, with promises that the brown liquid will make your roses bloom like a flower show. Save yourself the smelly jar. Soaking a peel for 2 days pulls out only a small fraction of what is in it, and the rest of the peel goes in the trash anyway, nutrients and all. The peel itself is the fertilizer. The Old Farmer's Almanac's banana peels as a source of potassium, the nutrient behind flowering, fruiting, and drought resistance. Tomatoes, peppers, and roses are all heavy potassium feeders, which is why the old-timers paired banana scraps with rose beds. Chop the peels into pieces about 1 inch wide so they break down faster, then bury them 3 or 4 inches deep near the edge of the plant's root zone. Better yet, drop a handful of chopped peel into the bottom of a planting hole and set your tomato right on top of it. Burying matters. A peel laid on the soil surface dries into leather, invites raccoons, and feeds nothing. Buried or composted, banana peels go in the works column. The viral water version is mostly a way to make your kitchen smell like a dumpster. Number 3. Grass clippings. Run the numbers on your own lawn for a second. Every bag of clippings you haul to the curb is nitrogen you paid to grow, watered all spring, and then handed away. Lawn fertilizer sells by the pound at the garden center, and clippings are that same nutrient coming back out of the grass. The lawn care industry sells you the nitrogen in a bag, then your town pays to haul the same nitrogen away in another one. Fresh clippings are one of the fastest-acting free fertilizers on this list because they are young, green, and full of moisture. Used as a mulch around vegetables, they feed the soil as they rot and smother weeds at the same time. 2 rules keep you out of trouble. First, spread them in thin layers about 1 inch at a time, and let each layer dry before adding the next. Piled thick and wet, clippings turn into a slimy mat that smells like a swamp. Second, never put clippings from a herbicide-treated lawn on a vegetable bed. Some lawn weed killers persist in the cut grass and can curl and stunt your tomatoes weeks later. If a lawn service sprays your yard, ask exactly what they use before a single clipping touches your garden. Clean clippings work, the price is $0, and your lawn makes more every week. The laziest version of this trick is even better. Leave the clippings on the lawn itself, and they feed the grass that grew them. Number 4. Shredded leaves. This one comes from October instead of the kitchen, but it earns its spot, because it may be the single most wasted free fertilizer in America. Those bags of leaves lining the curb every fall are slow-release plant food, soil conditioner, and mulch rolled into one. Whole leaves mat down and shed water, so the trick is shredding. Run a mower over a leaf pile a couple of times, and a soggy blanket becomes a fine, crumbly mulch that breaks down within a season. Leaves do their best work on the soil itself rather than on this year's harvest. They feed earthworms and soil microbes, they loosen heavy clay, and they help sandy soil hold water. Pile shredded leaves about 3 inches deep around shrubs, perennials, and vegetable beds, then top them up as they settle. If you stockpiled some last fall, even better. A leaf pile that has sat for a year breaks down into leaf mold, a dark, spongy material that old-time gardeners treated like money in the bank. And if your own trees are stingy, your neighbors will hand you bagged leaves every November and thank you for taking them. Slow, quiet, and effective. This one works, and it asks for nothing but patience. Number 5. Wood ash. That fire pit you sat around last weekend produced more than memories. Clean hardwood ash carries potassium, calcium, and a list of trace minerals, which is why farm families spread it on garden plots for generations. But of everything on this list that works, wood ash demands the most respect because it does 2 jobs at once, and the second job can bite you. Beyond feeding the soil, ash results pH, the same task agricultural lime performs. According to Iowa State University Extension, wood ash has roughly half the liming power of ground limestone, and too much of it can push pH high enough to harm plants and tie up the nutrients they need. The University of Wisconsin Horticulture Extension says the decision to use ash should be based on a soil test, and that is the rule to live by. A basic test through your county extension office costs about as much as a lunch out, and it tells you whether your soil is acidic enough to want ash in the first place. If it is, a light dusting worked into the top of the soil in spring is plenty. Keep it away from blueberries, azaleas, rhododendrons, and potatoes, and never use ash from charcoal briquettes, painted wood, or treated lumber. Clean, untreated firewood only. So this verdict comes with a condition attached. Wood ash works, and it can replace a bag of lime, but only after a soil test says your garden wants it. Number 6. Compost. If this list were ranked by raw value, compost would take every spot from 1 to 11. Every other item here is an ingredient. Compost is the finished meal, a complete slow-release fertilizer that also rebuilds soil structure, holds moisture, and feeds the underground life that keeps a garden healthy. The garden centers sell it in pasticas for the price of a sandwich apiece, and you can make an endless supply out of material you are throwing away right now. You do not need a tumbler, and you do not need to steaming pile with a pitchfork every week. For older backs and smaller yards, a simple enclosed bin in a back corner does the job. Layer your greens, meaning the coffee grounds, vegetable scraps, and grass clippings, with browns like shredded leaves and torn-up cardboard. Keep the pile about as damp as a wrung-out sponge, and let time do the heavy lifting. Some gardeners call it patience, 6 months to a year, no turning required. If you garden on a patio, a small worm bin tucked under a bench does the same work in a container-sized footprint, and the castings it produces are as rich as anything sold in a bag. One word covers this verdict: works. Nothing in the fertilizer aisle replaces it, and the raw materials show up in your kitchen every single day. If these tips are saving you money, take a second and hit subscribe. This channel covers budget gardening every week, and unlike everything in the fertilizer aisle, subscribing costs you nothing. Number 7. Aquarium water. This is the one that gets the strange looks, and it should not. If you keep a freshwater fish tank, sends gallons of mild, ready-made liquid fertilizer down the drain. Fish waste builds up nitrogen compounds in the water, the same family of nutrients sold in those little bottles of liquid plant food, just far more dilute. Pour it on your containers, your houseplants, or your vegetable beds instead. And no, I am not making that up. Plenty of aquarium keepers grow the best houseplants on the block without buying fertilizer at all. 2 cautions keep this safe. Use water from freshwater tanks only, because salt water will damage or kill garden plants. And skip it for a while if you have recently medicated the tank. Beyond that, there is no mixing and no measuring because the dose is naturally gentle. For anyone gardening on a porch or patio, this might be the easiest item on the entire list. The watering can fill itself every time you clean the tank. A niche verdict, but a real one. If you have the tank, it works. Number 8. Eggshells. Up to this point, every item has pulled real weight. The next 3 slide into a different category: harmless but oversold, and eggshells are the most famous member of that club. The theory sounds airtight. Eggshells are nearly pure calcium carbonate. Blossom end rot in tomatoes involves calcium, so crushed shells around your plants should prevent those ugly black-bottomed fruits. The problem is speed. The University of Minnesota Extension looked at this, and found that eggshells break down so slowly in soil that this season's plants are unlikely to see any benefit, and their advice is blunt. You may as well put them in the compost. On top of that, blossom end rot usually traces back to uneven watering rather than soil that is short on calcium. The calcium is already there. The plant just cannot move it when the roots swing between drought and flood. The real fix for black-bottom tomatoes is a steady watering schedule and a layer of mulch, not a coffee can full of shells. None of that makes shells worthless. Crushed fine, they are a slow long-term calcium deposit, and the compost pile is exactly where they belong. Just do not expect them to rescue your tomatoes in July. Harmless, mildly useful over the years, and dramatically overhyped. Number 9. Cooking water. You already make this one every night. The water left over from boiling vegetables, potatoes, or eggs carries small amounts of minerals and starches leached out of the food. Let it cool to room temperature, then pour it on your container plants instead of down the drain. The one rule that matters is salt. If you salted the pot, the water goes in the sink, period. Salt builds up in soil and containers and damages its roots long before you would ever see a warning sign. Keep your expectations modest, though. This is a mild boost, not a feeding program. The real value for a budget gardener is the habit of wasting nothing. And in a jar, the water itself is worth as much to a thirsty container garden as anything dissolved in it. Harmless, free, and modestly useful, which is exactly where it belongs on the scorecard. Number 10. Hair and pet fur. The strangest item on the list comes straight off your hairbrush. Hair is mostly keratin, a protein that contains nitrogen, and old garden books treated barbershop sweepings as a slow-release fertilizer. The internet has revived the idea, usually with claims a few sizes too big. Hair and fur break down very slowly, often taking a year or more in soil, so nothing you plant this spring will ever notice them. Tossed into a compost pile in thin layers, though, they add nitrogen to next year's batch, and that is a perfectly good use for something with no other purpose. Some gardeners swear that dog fur scattered around the beds also discourages rabbits, and while the evidence for that is thin, the price is right. Call it harmless. Compost it if you like, skip it without guilt, and do not expect miracles either way. Number 11. Epsom salt. The companies bagging Epsom salt for garden use could have put the record straight years ago. They did not, because Epsom salt sells. Walk through any garden center in June and you will find it suggested for greener leaves, more blooms, bigger tomatoes, and the prevention of blossom end rot. The internet repeats every word of it, and nearly every word is wrong. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, nothing more. It supplies magnesium and sulfur, two nutrients that typical garden soils already hold in adequate supply. Pouring more onto soil that does not need it does nothing for your plants at best. At worst, it causes real damage. According to the University of Minnesota Extension, Epsom salt can be harmful to soil, plants, and water, and the excess does not stay put. It leaches down through the ground and ends up in waterways. As for blossom end rot, the claim runs backwards. Blossom end rot is a calcium problem, and flooding the root zone with magnesium can crowd calcium out at the roots, which means the treatment can feed the exact problem it promises to cure. You would think a warning that strong would slow the trend down. It has not. The only time Epsom salt belongs in a garden is when a soil test shows a genuine magnesium deficiency, which is uncommon outside of certain sandy, acidic soils. If your tomato leaves are yellowing and you suspect a shortage, spend the money on the test instead of the salt. And notice one more thing. Epsom salt is the only item on this entire list you would have to buy, which makes it the easiest one to quit. Until a soil test tells you otherwise, the verdict here is the bluntest one of the day. Stop. It is the one popular fertilizer tip that can leave your garden worse than it found it. So there is the honest scorecard, 7 that work. Coffee grounds, banana peels, grass clippings, shredded leaves, wood ash with a soil test in hand, compost, and aquarium water. 3 that are harmless and oversold, eggshells, cooking water, and hair. And 1 that stays on the store shelf where it belongs. At the top of this video, I said companies selling that $15 bag have no reason to tell you what your scraps can do. The other half of that story is that they have every reason to keep selling you bloom boosters and Epsom salt your soil never asked for. The knowledge that protects your wallet and your tomatoes is a soil test and a compost pile, and the two together cost less than 1 trip down the fertilizer aisle. Your kitchen has been producing free fertilizer the entire time you have been gardening. Now you know which scraps to trust. If this kind of honest, money-saving gardening is what you are after, there is plenty more like it on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.